I'm Scott Fishman.
I'm John Dwoskin.
And this is the 7-Minute Salesman.
Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Johnny, what's going on?
Fish, good morning. How are you, man?
Doing good. Long time no podcast.
Well, good things come to those who wait, to the 7-minute community.
There you go. Yes. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Sorry for the delay here, or the hiatus. It's been a little bit crazy over here, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're back, and that's all that's important. And I think it's a good example that although we talk a lot about consistency is important, it's important to take a breath and take a pause, and then just bounce right back in. So
Right.
Yeah.
And it feels great. A lot of messages from the community asking about when our next episodes are coming up. And it feels good.
I was on a call. I was telling you this, but I got such a kick out of it. I was on a call. A guy called me. He's about 81 years old. And so we were playing little phone tag, and I called him back. And I said, hey, David, how are you? He goes, oh, I'm just finishing listening to Fish.
That's awesome.
I loved it. I got such a kick out of it. So, and what I loved about it is our audience really is, the starting salesperson who's in their 18, 20, some odd 30, 40. And this is an 80 some year old listening to our podcast and learning and just asking stuff about, business and sales, and podcasting is for everybody. So it's good to be able to do this with you and share it with all the people that really benefit from it.
Absolutely. And little did you know that the 81-year-old guy was listening to Abe Vigoda from Barney Miller, who was on Fish. He wasn't listening to us.
That's a good name to pull. That's a good name. Yeah.
No doubt. So it's funny, you mentioning that actually segues very well into what we're going to talk about in this episode, John. And then, so we'll tell a little story here, maybe a story and a half.
Yeah, to do it up.
We'll give some tips, because I think this is going to be a hefty, meaty episode that we're going to give people some good takeaways.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing into that. I think it's going to be a really good, hefty episode with great takeaways. Not to repeat exactly what you just said, but to finish the end of the year strong, and a very important tips for 2021 because of the world that we are in right now with COVID. I think these are critical things we're going to talk about that take a little extra time, a little extra pause, but really critical to the growth of any salesperson.
Right. And John, just to paraphrase, these are critical to the growth of any salesperson. Not to just say what you just said. So let's give it a little throwback. We were talking a while back. We did an episode, and I skewered a guy a while back. He actually interviewed us on his podcast, I think after I skewered him, which is even funnier. But this guy had hit me up, and he had called me and sent me a message on Facebook like, hey, I think I could really help you out. I think you could benefit from my program. And we started talking, and he knew nothing about me. Mm-hmm. I'm not like all over every social. I'm not like posting stuff every day. I'm not shooting selfies on a private jet so people can see me, but I actually am fairly transparent about my business, who I am, what I do. So it's not hard to find me. So this guy who was like, yeah, I'm going to help you out, and this is a great program for you. When I started talking to him, it was literally just a pitch, and he had not done any research on me. He did no recon at all.
Yeah.
And had he spent 5 minutes, he could have really tailored his pitch. Literally 5 minutes. He could have tailored his pitch. He could have had me possibly sold, or at least had me engaged for more than the 7 or 8 minutes that he actually engaged me for, just by, again, doing 5 minutes of research. Look on my social, look on my LinkedIn. I guess LinkedIn's social as well these days, but look at everything and just find out a little bit about me. Shit, I have a website. I mean, go to my website. You can find out about me. There's a thing on my website. It says about.
Right.
You can find a little bit about me. So,
I mean, you have a series of books. You're on Amazon. I mean, there's many different ways, very easy ways to find you.
Exactly. So we did an episode, and we kind of picked on them, and we talked about the importance of doing research and doing recon before you sell a prospect. And then this week, I got it kind of flipped on me a little bit in the best possible way. I loved it. And this is going to bring us to our topic, but I interviewed a guy, and he was a great sales guy. I mean, this guy was a consummate salesman. I loved him. Interviewed him, made an offer. He's coming to work with us, and he had emailed me to thank me. And here's the part where, full disclosure, I'm going to share that I screwed up something. He emailed me to thank me, and I got so busy. I was like, I'm going to reply to him in an hour. I didn't reply to him for a few days. So I actually picked up the phone and called him to apologize for not responding. Because if I was starting a job at a new organization and someone of any sort of authority did not return an email for days, I would be pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
So I called him.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, I just want to apologize. I hadn't gotten back to you. And that's, terrible. It's really low level of me. I wouldn't normally do this. And I just wanted to pick up the phone and own it. And he's like, no problem. No big deal. He's like, by the way, I noticed you had a podcast and I've been listening to it. I'm a podcast guy. And he's like, you do a podcast with, Jonathan Dwoskin. And I was like, it just sounded weird because on the podcast, we don't use our full names really.
Right.
And he was clearly reading it off something.
Right.
So either he was selling me and I loved it, or he actually was a listener. And if you are a listener here, I'm going to give you a shout out, Mark. If you are listening, good job. And if you're not listening, Mark, good job. Because he gave me the feels, as we always talk about the feels. And it made me feel like he knew something about me. So it tells me about the importance of doing research with your prospects.
Yeah.
And we actually did a whole episode about it, but I wanted to circle back on that because it's super important.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I love that story, and I think it's even more important today than ever before because we're virtually selling in many respects, and the emotional connection of those face-to-face meetings is not going to be there probably for a lot of 2021, and for sure the end of this year as we're sitting here at the second wave of COVID. And so doing that research to connect with someone, to emotionally connect with someone, to really, just dive in and make it look like you're actually worth time to talk to them, is important. So I think, just kind of, and we've talked a lot about time blocking too. I think it's really important to actually put in your calendar to actually on a daily basis, however you do it, to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes a day doing research on new prospects that you want to hit. Really just very focused time to do just what you're talking about.
Exactly. And it's not difficult. I mean, people are out there. And if you search someone on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, wherever else, YouTube, if you search for people, their information will come right to the top. It's not hard. So I guess we'll talk about some tips here, but it's so important. And I want to stress that over and over again.
Yeah. So let's give some tips. So let's talk about, let's just kind of unpack what this guy did is one, he did research. We don't necessarily know how, but let's talk about ways maybe that are ways that we can even actually raise our visibility, right? So had this guy come, for example, and we know, he looked at one of your podcasts, so, or was listening to the podcast. So had he maybe commented or liked something that you post about the podcast on Twitter or any social platform, LinkedIn, et cetera, then it would have notified you that this person let a comment and he could have engaged in a conversation on you. And you would have known before you even talked on the phone that he was actually doing research, and you could then in return do research on him.
Exactly. And just on top of that, just if he just commented, it would have, and again, I'm not saying this guy did anything wrong, but this is things that we can do, that we can share,
right,
we can use. If you comment on somebody's post, they're going to see your name, right? You comment on something they did. You don't have to call them and sell them. But if you know you're going to call someone on the 15th, maybe on the 1st, you comment on something.
Yeah.
On the 5th, you comment on something. On the 10th. And now they're like, oh, who's this John Dwoskin guy? He's engaging me. He's reading my stuff. Look at this.
Yeah.
And then on the 15th, you call him and he's like, oh, the name sounds familiar. Because usually you don't put two and two together right away. Then it's like, oh, you're that guy that's been commenting on my stuff on LinkedIn or on Facebook.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you got a friend.
Quick thing on commenting too with LinkedIn, it's important that you use 5 words or more when you comment because of the analytics. It just picks up in a more accelerated way. But I agree, Fish. And I think sometimes people don't know what to say when they comment, so I think this is what we're talking about for a couple of minutes, because this, I think, is a really important piece of research, raising your awareness and just brand with the person that you want to talk to, whether it's a client or a prospect. They don't know what to research because they're not taking the time to maybe read the 2-minute read that you put in, look at something that you actually did. So to comment, is much harder than it is to like. But if you look at commenting as a prospecting tool, as a two-way street research tool, then I'm going to suggest that you actually start spending time and allocating time to do it, because it's really, really important. I mean, just talking it out with you right here, how much more advanced the conversation in your scenario would have been had he been commenting. You would have then been able to say, oh yeah, I did notice that you commented, but I'm now putting 2 and 2 together. And that would have then accelerated the conversation, because you could actually then go to LinkedIn, go to the comments, click on his profile, and do some quick research on who's talking to you at that moment.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, This is exactly what we're talking about. Get to know your audience. And, again, if you're calling someone totally blind, you're messing up. And, I'm going to own it. I've done it. I probably did it 3 or 4 times last week. Just hopped on a phone call that I could have spent a couple minutes researching my target. Instead, I just came in blind and winged it because I was cocky and overconfident. Maybe that's the same thing. Cocky and overconfident. I don't know. I was cocksure when I walked in. And then,
however it was, right. So but you mentioned also, and we're both mentioning all the different platforms. There's different platforms that offer different angles and lenses of somebody's personality. LinkedIn is a much more professional networking platform. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all different platforms with different pieces of somebody's personality. Where's the line of calling someone and saying, hey, I saw that you ate at McDonald's yesterday.
Right. There is a little bit of creepy. There's something that we should definitely toe that line. But I think let's talk about what you can find out about people.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you're going to find out where they went to school. You're going to find out where they've worked. You might find out some associations they belong to, some clubs they belong to.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get some very good information about just their career and their business life.
Yeah.
And that's huge. One of the great things, and it's the college, find out where they went to school. And then you make a comment about it. I mean, John, you and I went to Eastern Michigan. So
correct.
We can always talk about, wish I went to, whatever school you went to.
Right.
Just
right.
make a joke. For anyone that went to Eastern Michigan, I'm sorry. I hope you didn't live in Ypsilanti when you went there, like John and I did. But there's a lot you can find out there. But then think about Twitter. Most people with Twitter, they're tweeting out a little bit of information, but a lot of stuff that they do is retweets, right? So you can find out what they're interested in or what they're following, because if they're retweeting something, they're more than likely following it, or it was something that caught their eye.
Right.
So you're finding out a little bit about them there. If they have a YouTube channel, that's easy because you're going to find out what they're talking about. And usually they're talking about something they're interested in or something they're selling or something that they want to share with people.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a Facebook guy. I know you're on Facebook.
Wait, I just want to go back to LinkedIn for 1 second, because there is something else that I am actually not good at asking people about, because I always forget about it, actually. But you can check out, recommendations. People will give recommendations. And I think that's actually an important part of LinkedIn. As I'm sitting here talking to you about it, I always forget to even ask people to do it, because I just think, I just forget about it. But that is an important element of it as well, LinkedIn. To do research on what people are saying.
Yeah. And then even you can comment on what they've been recommended for, right?
Yeah.
And then, gosh, you've been recommended for sushi 57 times, not sushi, but
I know what you
selling
mean.
57 times, you must really know what you're doing. And it's a good way to give them the feels. It's a good way to
Yeah.
prop them up a little bit. So do me a favor, John, can you tell us a little bit about things they could find about on Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah, Facebook is, I think something that I think is great about Facebook is you can find out a little bit more about the social aspect of what they're doing. You can find out kind of what they're reading. I think a lot of people post the things of what they're reading, what podcasts they like, pictures of their family, places they've been, vacation to, things that they take a position on. I'm not a big fan of diving into, politics, but, there's a lot of political views on Facebook that people give. And, it's just looking at more of just the social aspect, restaurants they've gone to. Again, I think you want to be careful with saying, hey, I saw that you ate at such and such Saturday night, but it's okay saying, hey, you know what? I was doing some research and on Facebook, I saw that you ate at, what's a big restaurant downtown that people are, I've been wanting to get in there for 3 weeks. How did you get a reservation? I think that type of stuff is good, but I think it's a great platform, to see who some of your mutual friends are. Or just say, hey, I saw that you posted a book or a podcast that you liked and an article that you liked, and I just got a lot out of it. I want to thank you for sharing that. And so I think that's where Facebook is. It's just a little bit more social.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you mentioned like common threads. There's every once in a while I'll come across someone that I have a LinkedIn connection in common with.
Yeah.
And it's like some Indonesian Fiverr virtual assistant that we're both friends or connected with.
Right.
Like, how is this person connected with everybody? Sorry for living in Indonesia, but I just made that up. But there's a lot of virtual assistants out there that I'm sure John and I are both connected with through all the podcasting and books that we do.
But I do think it's important, Fish, and all the stuff we're talking about. I know I keep on going back to this, but it's important to, and you were talking about this earlier, you kicked off by saying it just takes 5 minutes. And so sometimes this is an easy 5 minutes to resist not doing, right? But a lot of times we resist what we need to do most. And this is really, really important. This is prospecting today. This is research today. This is the microfiche. Remember, this is the microfiche and the encyclopedia of today. And if we had this technology 20, 30, 40 years ago, we would have said, oh, think about how easy it would be if you could just spend 5 minutes, learning everything about this person instead of over 3 years. And so I can't emphasize enough the 5 minutes, the 4 minutes, the 2 minutes, something to do research and make it part of your daily world.
Absolutely. And I think going back and looking at it and dissecting it, one of the main reasons we're probably not doing it is shame on us. We're expecting our prospects to not pick up the phone when we call.
Mm-hmm.
So we're again, if they're not going to pick up, why should I waste 5 minutes for this 30-second voicemail I'm going to leave? But you never know. You might get a nugget of information you can actually use on that voicemail.
Right.
Instead of, hey, it's John, call me back.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So there is no excuse. Just do it.
Yeah.
A couple other things. You had mentioned something very interesting is if they have a mailing list, like if this is someone who actually utilizes that medium, use it, like sign up for it. You'll get a little insight into what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And make sure that when you sign up for their email list, it doesn't go to spam or clutter or quarantined email. But that's going to give you a huge piece of their personality that they are in complete control over. So it may give you a little bit more in-depth piece. And one other thing, Fish, is, and we've talked about this a little bit on other shows, but putting together short, quick, and concise emails that intro emails where you are maybe sending out a 1 minute Loom video, a link to an article about, your services, and just like something that they can read in less than, 30 seconds that gives them a gist of who you are and the benefits of working with you and how you can add value to them. I know that's a tall order to actually, give, but it takes time to, you don't want to, there's nothing worse than getting a huge 1-page email that you have to read through as somebody's making an intro, and give somebody the power of video whether it's using Loom or is it BombBomb or anything that gives an intro. They say that a 30-second video is equivalent to 3.5 million words read. And so, flip the research, send people information to do research on you. If you don't hear back, keep on calling, keep on commenting, keep on liking. It takes 17 to 50 touches for somebody to connect with you, and 80% of calls don't get returned. So keep going. And one of the things I'm finding is that I'm finding and that I'm hearing from a lot of my clients that I coach is less people are calling back, but more people are actually answering the phone because they want to talk, and they're doing business with people who just call the most, or who they can rely on are actually picking up the phone and calling.
Right. People are lonely right now.
Yeah, they really are.
So I want to touch on that video piece because it's great. And one thing to think about is you're controlling the narrative when you do that.
Yeah,
right?
well said.
So if they're going to do some research on you, they're like, who is this John Dwoskin guy who's calling me? And they're going to find out, they might Google you and find out if I Google John Dwoskin, I'm going to be inundated with 1,000 podcasts and books and everything, like until 10 pages into Google. But you Google me, you're going to find probably something pretty weird, who knows? So if I just send you a video of what I'm about and I send you the links and I give you a couple bullet points, I can control what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Go ahead and Google me, see what you find. No, there's a lot of Scott Fishmans out there. Let's just say that. There's a dentist that I used to steal his picture for something. Sorry, Scott Fishman, DDS. But yeah, there's a way that you can actually really control what you're going to see when you do it this way.
Yeah.
So I think that is super powerful.
Yeah. I just Googled you while we're sitting here talking, and there's a ton of stuff that comes up about you right off the bat. Your Twitter, books, podcast, our podcasts, a lot of stuff. And then there's some other Scott Fishman. There's no other John Dwoskin though.
No, definitely not.
There's no other John Dwoskin. So research, I just want to talk about, because I want to dive in, because I love what you're talking about, which is controlling the narrative, being tight with your messaging when you are researching, and really paying attention to when you just, things we've been talking about, when you're commenting, when you're emailing people, when you're talking to people, role play, and know what your message is and the questions that you're going to ask and the talking points that are very relevant for today's world. Because if someone's picking up the phone today, they want value. They want to talk to you. They want to dive in. I think you can get deeper into a conversation and deeper into a relationship faster because of what you said. I agree with you, Fish. People are lonely. They're craving quality conversations with people that can call and bring value. And so people want you to do research on them so you can call and hit the ground running with them and how you can actually help them figure something out. Everybody is in a mode right now where they are looking at the next 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, frankly, 3 months, and figuring out, what am I doing to pivot, adapt, and grow my business during this time? And what tools and resources and people do I need? And you're just one phone call away from getting a great new client who needs you as a resource, as somebody in their inner circle at their table.
So well said, John. I think on that, we can definitely end this episode, because we could probably talk for 3 more hours, or we could just end it with all these great tips. But you did say something at the end that I really liked. You said your next phone call. So make one more call. If you take nothing else away from this, do research and make one more call.
Amen.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Now, no excuses. It's time to put everything you listen to into action. Stop bullshitting yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Stop listening and doing nothing with this information. Take this information, implement it into your day, kick some ass, grow your business, grow your sales, make more money, have more fun, have a better life, period, the end.
What he said.